Welcome to Pizza Quest. I'm Peter Reinhardt. Our Pizza Quest music Yoda, Peter Scott Ruben, is back for another trip to the Mount Rushmore of greatness. You may recall that during his last visit, we discussed the top 10 greatest singer-entertainers of our generation with a special focus on the greatest of the greats, Frank Sinatra, followed by the man who would have been king had he not died so young, Bobby Darin. And then we talked about the amazing Ella Fitzgerald, Judy Garland, and on and on. If you missed that show, go to pizzaquest.com and type in Peter Scott Ruben in the search bar, and it'll take you to that episode. But this time, we're going to explore a similar but different top 10 list, the greatest rock band singers of all time, not soloists, but those who made their bones fronting the great bands of our lifetime. Peter, as you may recall from his last visit, has the bona fides to weigh in on this subject as one of the finest guitarists and singers I've ever known, who fronted his own bands as well as his Frank Sinatra and Bobby Darin tribute shows, and who also has jammed with some of the all-time great guitarists, such as Joe Perry and Kim Simmons and others. This is a continuation of a debate we've had many times over the past 50 years, ever since Peter and I were in college together, spending hours at the famed Boston Tea Party to see newly arrived bands like Led Zeppelin, Spirit, Mountain with Leslie West, the Savoy Brown Blues Band, the Jay Giles Band, Faces with Rod Stewart, Humble Pie with Steve Marriott, and on in our misspent youth. And now we're bringing you in, our listeners, we're bringing you in on it. Buckle up for some serious, opinionated rock music talk in quest of the top 10 rock band singers, both male and female, of all time. Peter Scott Ruben, welcome back to Pizza Quest.
How are you?
I'm good. And you? It's been a while since we last talked.
Right. It's been one rotator cuff surgery ago.
That's right. Yes, you've been out of action for a few months and getting ready to get back onto the circuit, would you say?
I've been gigging for 2 months anyway.
Oh, all right. In pain. So you're bringing all the pain. Well, listen, before we dive into the greatest singers debate, I have to ask on behalf of our loyal pizza freak community, do you recall during our days growing up in the Philadelphia suburbs what your favorite go-to pizzerias were? We should shout them out before diving down the singer rabbit hole.
I do. And when I lived in Penwyn on Dorset Lane, across City, it used to be City Line Avenue. Now it's just City Avenue.
Oh, right. That's the dividing line between Philadelphia and the suburb.
In the suburb.
Yeah.
A couple blocks down, there was a pizzeria, Pagano's Pizza.
Oh, yeah. That was one of my go-tos.
And the box said, "You've tasted the rest, now taste the best."
So was that was, I know it's close to where you live. So was that one of your go-tos?
That was the go-to place until I moved to Ballackinwood. Then it was Mama's.
And so Mama's was the same. Mama's was one that we've talked about a lot on this show. But when you lived in Penwyn, for those who don't know the area, so Penwyn was maybe a mile or two further away from where Peter then later moved, closer to me in Ballackinwood. There was a place called Boston Style Pizza. Do you remember that?
Style Pizza, which was run
Manoa Road.
Manoa Road, yes, by a bunch of Greek guys.
Yeah.
And when this is probably 1966, maybe 67.
Yeah.
And a plain pizza was 90 cents.
No. And I remember those pizzas. They were very good. That was my first kind of experience with what we'll call Greek style pizza. It was a round pizza with a nice puffy crust, but it was smaller. It seemed smaller in diameter.
But very good.
Yeah. But in the end, Mama's Pizza was the place that I love. Pagano's. They had a couple of locations and we ate there a lot, but Mama's was the place. And for those who have been following the Mama's story on here, they're still making cheesesteaks for, I think, another year. And then the owner, Paul Jr., has decided to shut it down after, 70 years in the game. And they stopped making pizzas like 10 or 15 years ago. So Mama's Pizzeria has really been Mama's Cheesesteaks, which I've rated for years and years as the best cheesesteak in the world. And so that's one of the things we haven't common, aside from growing up near each other and then going off to Boston together and getting in all sorts of trouble up there. And then we all kind of went back into our lives, and you kept going with music, and you were, in the your father's orchestra, right? The Harold Ruben Orchestra, is it called?
Yes, for many years. When I wasn't playing in rock band.
In rock bands, yeah. So that was kind of like your dual life, and there you kind of experienced the great standards, the Frank Sinatra generation, and where kind of immersed yourself in both worlds, and but never stopped playing. And if I recall, a few years ago, you were in a tribute band, a Cream tribute band, where you played Eric Clapton, right? You put on an Eric Clapton wig, and you took the Eric Clapton role in this tribute band, right?
And that was fun.
Well, maybe we'll see if any of those names pop up on this list. So, are you ready to kind of take us through? We'll start with, let's say, a top 10 list, and maybe eventually come up with a Mount Rushmore of the greatest of the greats. So let's do a countdown from 10 down.
Well, when we were trying to come up with a topic for today that hadn't been talked about to death, and I texted you and I said, and here's one, the top 10 rock vocalists from bands. When I sat down to write my list, it came out in a half a minute. Not in any particular order, not from 1 to 10, but the top 10 came out, bang. And then when I thought about it more, I had some honorable mentions, but those 10 names are still there. They came right out, and they're still there. And I'll go through them with you.
Well, most of them. And now, what's the time frame? What are we talking about for people who don't kind of know the game here? In the 60s, but are you covering some names that maybe come up to contemporary times?
If I thought that there was anybody that was that good or had part of this is impact, and when you're young is when you're open to the impact, and bands from the 80s, 90s and on, there may be some really good ones. They don't move me the way the bands in our youth moved me.
So the criteria for making this list, then, impact is one of the key criteria.
Absolutely.
Any other criteria you can cite that, and we'll get into it as we talk about each of them. Yeah. The way I made my own list, I've got lots of names on here that I'm going to run by you, and many of which will probably not be on your list, but I'm guessing that there will be quite a few redundancies here too.
The ones that made me sit up and take notice, that I was in awe of their vocal range, their ability to translate notes and words into a song that changed my life. Those guys.
Yeah. So the change your life factor is a big criteria in all this. Yeah.
Yeah. That moves the needle.
Well, maybe some of these are people maybe we got to see together at various times. Give me one. Let's get the ball rolling. Start with one that maybe is not your top 3, but somebody on that list.
Well, the first one that I wrote down, and it's 2 guys from the same band.
All right.
It's John Lennon and Paul McCartney.
That'd be Lennon and McCartney. I have it on my list, wondering if you were going to give both of them.
Both. They're both individually and together the 2 greatest probably ever. They were just off the charts. You can't say enough. And interestingly, which I found enjoyable, when Rolling Stone did its top 100 vocalists, Lennon was 1 place higher than McCartney. And they cited the uniqueness of his voice, the unique timbre of his voice as the reason why. And I thought that was brilliant.
You talking about Lennon or McCartney?
Lennon.
Oh, yeah. So their voices were very different. Let's talk about Lennon then. What was it about his voice and differentiating? A lot of people just know the Beatles. They don't realize that Paul McCartney, sang lead on some songs. John Lennon sang lead on some songs. Later on, they gave George Harrison and Ringo a couple shots, but they dominated. At the beginning, I didn't know which one was which when I was a kid. And later on, as we got deeper into it, you can start to tell them apart. But what was it about Lennon's voice that you thought was so unique and great?
Well, Lennon, he and Ringo were the oldest guys in the band. And when you're 20 and 21 and 22, a year or two can make a big difference in terms of seniority. So in the beginning, it was John Lennon's band, and he was quintessential rock and roll singer.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you go back to the early Beatles, anything that he sang, his version of Twist and Shout, he had no throat. They had been recording all day, and he just did it as a reference vocal to come back and do later because he had no throat left.
He was wrong.
And it's one of the great rock and roll vocals of all time.
And which album was that on?
Twist and Shout, I don't know, because then you get into the British albums versus the American album.
Oh, yeah.
Probably was on the second Beatles album.
So very early Beatles. And it seemed like back then when they were first coming out that a lot of times he took the lead, and Paul McCartney was like that, the guy doing the harmonies. He was the one kind of like right behind him while he's playing the bass. He's coming in with this other sound.
Paul had the true tenor voice, could really hit those high harmonies, but McCartney could rock and roll too. He could rock and roll too. He had his share of screamers as well. The idea that Lennon was the rocker and McCartney was the balladeer is nonsense. They both did all of the styles magnificent. That's why they are still held in the esteem that they're. I'm just grateful that you and I happen to be the perfect age.
Yeah.
When they hit.
Yeah, we were just early teens, and I wasn't one of the girls sitting in the front row painting and screaming my head off, but my wife was. Yeah. All right, so
I saw them live.
You saw them live when they were touring the stage?
Convention Hall, 1964.
1964. Wow, that
11th row. My father took me, and I stood on his shoulders. And he held me up because that's how every kid in the place was standing on their father's shoulders.
Wow. Did that band...
I had those ticket stubs until my house got hit by lightning and burned down in 1989.
Oh, my God.
I lost my box of ticket stubs.
All those mementos. When you saw them at that concert, even as a young kid, did you feel like you're standing in this presence of greatness?
Well, back then, it wasn't a concert. It was a review. Like 7 bands from England. So every time a band came on, we thought it was them.
Oh, really?
5 or 6 bands later, they finally came on, and I think they did about 25 minutes.
Do you remember the other bands?
Oh, my God. I'm sure it was Jerry and the Pacemakers and Rory Storm and the Shadows.
Dave Clark 5.
They weren't around yet.
No? Oh, okay.
Not quite. But it was a review. Like Alan Freed had started here with rock and roll reviews with 6 or 7 acts.
Yeah, like when the Motown groups would all go out as like 6 different groups. Yeah. So, I had no idea because I didn't see them then. I was there, but I didn't see that concert, and I didn't know that there was like a whole cluster of them. Because had they not gone on Ed Sullivan yet?
They had.
So they asked them over. So they were already the headliners.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, should we count Lennon and McCartney as 1A or as 10A and 10B, or should we give them a position, an individual?
They each get their own number.
All right. Well, we got 2 down then. All right. I'm wondering who you got next.
The next one for me, and these are just the way they came into my brain as I sat down to write them. The next guy that comes up for me is Steve Miller.
Steve Miller.
Steve Miller is one of the most incredible vocalists that ever made records. And when he became popular in the mid-'70s with what I call the AM hits, Jet Airliner, Rockin' Me, Swing Town, Take the Money and Run, to me, that's his bubblegum period. The albums that we grew up on up in Boston. Steve Miller, the Steve Miller Band, Sailor, Brave New World, Your Saving Grace, Steve Miller number 5, Rock Love, Recall the Beginning, A Journey from Eden, all the things he did before he got famous, that's where his best work is.
Interesting. Well, that happened for a lot of performers, a lot of them who, like, for instance, started out in bands and then later broke away. I mentioned Rod Stewart as an example. You know, when we first saw him, he was just part of a band, and, you know, no one knew how great he was going to become. But did something change for all these guys when they went out solo, or did some of them continue to kind of build on their origins?
It's a good question. Most guys, when they go solo, can't match the quality of what they did in the group setting, and the Beatles, to me, is the prime example. And I get into arguments with people all the time. I maintain that none of the four matched anything that they ever did with the group, even close. You know, people rave. Well, what about George Harrison? When that album came out in Boston, in our dorm, we all hated that album so much that we named it All Things Must Pass Gas.
I think even
swear to God, it was muddy. Phil Spector had produced it. His voice was thin. Nobody wanted to hear him singing about religion and the Lord. We wanted rock and roll. And we hated the album. All 3 discs of it, we ate. Like I still do.
All right, so George didn't make the list.
No.
But Steve Miller did. And of course, now many people who are younger than us who are listening might know and be more familiar with his later work, the bubblegum period, as you called it. But that early period, and I was never a big Steve Miller band. I knew him, but I wasn't a huge fan. So what was maybe their most signature song?
Well, on the first album, the Steve Miller, actually originally was the Steve Miller Blues Band, but then it became the Steve Miller Band. A lot of people don't know that the other lead singer in that band was Boz Scaggs.
Boz Scaggs, right? That's
and the breakout song from their very first album was "Living in the USA."
Okay, that's the one that I remember. That was the one that got them on everyone's radar.
Great song. The next album, well, that wasn't the Children of the Future was the first album, which didn't have any singles. Sailor was the second album with Living in the USA. The third one was his breakout album, Brave New World, and the big hit from that album was Space Cowboy.
All right. Yeah.
Also, that album, which many people don't know because it's not credited, the last track of the album is called My Dark Hour. Great track. And there's only 2 musicians on it, Steve Miller and Paul McCartney.
No kidding.
McCartney's playing drums and bass. Steve Miller's playing all the guitars, and they're both doing the vocals. And I wished that they had more of a collaboration later on, because McCartney's solo work could have used the dose of balls that Lennon gave him. Steve Miller had that as well.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
But it's the only track they ever did together. My Dark Hour.
And when he went off on his own then later, or started other bands, Boz Scaggs went off on his own too, right? They split, or did they stay together? And wasn't Elvin Bishop part of that little group too? Was he part of their...
Elvin Bishop started with Paul Butterfield.
Oh, okay.
He was the second guitar player to Mike Bloomfield in Field's Blues Band.
Right. Okay.
And then Elvin went out on his own and had the big hit, Fooled Around and Fell in Love, with the singer Mickey Thomas, who was the lead vocalist for what became the Jefferson Starship.
They're all connected. And of course, those were the San Francisco crew, and the Bay Area. So, all right. So we got Steve Miller, who, by the way, in that Rolling Stone top singers, didn't even make the list. I don't think. I didn't see his name on the top, whatever it was, 50 or 200 singers.
Yeah. A glaring oversight. He was one of the first guys, if not the first, to double and triple track his own voice. When the Beatles needed harmony, they had 3 guys who could sing: Steve Miller, double and triple tracked his own voice, and the sound of that was like a choir. And he had endless range. You know, one of the things that makes these guys great is their range. They can sing as high as they want. They sing whatever they want.
Interesting. So
and he could do that.
So a lot of people don't realize that he was also a great voice, not just a great performer.
Fabulous singer. The next guy that came up for me, the greatest frontman of all time, Mick Jagger.
Yeah, he's got to be on this. I was thinking he might be in, like on many of the lists, he's like number 1 or 2. So, but he's not on your top 4, I would say.
Not the purest, greatest voice, but can you picture anyone else singing Rolling Stones songs? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the quintessential frontman.
Yeah.
And, Mick, he's known for his dancing on stage or his movements. He never stayed still. That came about. He used to just stand there and hold the microphone like frontmen did.
Yeah.
Until 1965, they were on the Tammy Show. Do you remember the Tammy Show?
Was that kind of like Hullabaloo or something like that?
It was a big concert. It was telecast, black and white. The Beach Boys, a lot of bands. James Brown went on right before the Rolling Stones. And Mick Jagger saw James Brown do his dance moves.
Yeah.
And he came out. They were the next band. And he came out and he was moving just all over the stage. He looked silly.
Yeah.
It took him a while to get those moves down. But I give credit for having the guts to say, you know what? I'm going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, he had no shame at all.
No shame.
So he owes that whole part of his act to James Brown.
James Brown.
Well, there's a piece of trivia for everyone to tuck away.
There you go.
Well, he's definitely. I just got to say, Mick Jagger is definitely, like you said, as an all-around performer, he's king of the hill. But
he's the front man by which all other front men are measured.
Right.
He's number 1 and always will.
Cool.
The next guy that came up for me, from Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant.
I knew he'd be on your list. Yeah,
he's on my list,
and he's having a great new surge. He's 50 years later, and he's back with a whole new gig.
He never stopped.
Yeah, and he's reinvented himself a number of times.
His work. I'm one of those people who love Led Zeppelin love them from the beginning to the end. Not me.
Yeah.
For me, Zeppelin 1 and 2 are Desert Island albums. They're as good as any 2 albums ever made. And after that, after 2, for me, they fell off the cliff. And Plant, but what Plant did on those first 2 albums just blew me away. Those performances hold up. His range was off the charts.
Yeah. Yeah, wasn't he kind of like the original wailing voice, that high reaching wailing voice that
he was. He was the first guy I knew who had that kind of a range. And he was, I think when Page found him, he was 18 or 19.
Really?
He's only a couple of years, I think he was born in 48, maybe 49. He's like our contemporary. Because most of these guys were born in the early to mid 40s. But Plant is very close. He was spectacular with the blonde flowing hair.
And that's the other thing. He had like the best hair in the world.
Yeah.
Made me very jealous.
I saw them once at the Spectrum, and we argue that you were and weren't there because I say that you got us the seats in the press box for the 2 nights of the Spectrum shows.
But I probably I may have got your seats, but I didn't get to go.
The second night was Al Cooper, who had just left Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Buddy Guy, and this is the order. Al Cooper, Buddy Guy, Led Zeppelin, Jethro Tull, and Johnny Winter.
Johnny Winter. That's another.
And they had to pull the plug on Zeppelin because they wouldn't stop.
and the audience probably didn't want him to stop, right?
It would they were empty. These concerts were empty. Nobody knew who these bands were yet. The night before was Frank Zappa, Jeff Beck, Savoy Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, and the Mothers of Invention. These concerts on a Friday and Saturday, they were to be known as the Spectrum Pop Flops.
You know what? I know who got you those tickets. It was my brother, Fred. Fred was
Probably.
He was working for the Electric Factory Group, and he had access to all that. So he probably got you the tickets, and but he never offered them to me. But who knows where I was at that point?
Yeah, who knows?
Well, I'm gonna when I see him soon, I'm gonna bug him about that. Well, that's cool. Well, those are some amazing concerts to see these guys before they became, iconic the way they did.
Because the next guy I saw at the arena in August of '68, it was without a doubt the hottest concert. I don't mean hot good. I mean hot temperature.
All right.
It was like 100 degrees in there. People were passing out. There were three bands. The first band was a band from New York called All That the Name Implies, which nobody ever heard of.
No, or since, yeah.
The second band was the Mandrake Memorial.
Philadelphia's finest. Yeah.
Philadelphia Zones, who I love. And the headliners were the Doors.
The Doors. Wow.
And Jim Morrison, he may be my favorite of all time.
Really?
He's up there for me in so many ways. His voice, he loved Sinatra. He is his big influence. He had that deep voice with the heavy vibrato.
Yeah.
Sinatra.
Interesting. I didn't know. Who would have guessed?
Who would have guessed? And his lyrics and his stage presence, and he was stunningly good looking. He's right up there for me. I feel a real kinship to that guy and that band. They really blew me away.
They were so off the chart different from everybody else that many people couldn't deal with them the first time around. It took a while until Light My Fire came out. Nobody really, I think, not everybody took them seriously. Then all of a sudden everybody was on board.
And Morrison didn't write that. Robbie Krieger wrote that.
The guitar player.
He wrote that. Mm-hmm. But Morrison was so that band.
Yeah.
He may be more that band. Plan had Page. Jagger had Richards. Morrison may be more that band than any singer ever was to any other band. He's right up there. He's right.
My name is
I was that they all hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. My brother, I don't know if he got you those tickets, but he was the guy who introduced me to the Doors. He was way ahead of me on a lot of these bands, and the Doors was one of his discoveries, and I didn't get it at first, but I think he probably was at the same concert you were at.
This next guy, well, not only the Beatles, the entire British invasion blew me away, because it was the first real rock that we heard. American music was lighter. It was the Beach Boys. Motown was great, but it wasn't rock. It was soul. It was R&B. Phenomenal. But the first time we heard You Really Got Me by the Kinks, everything changed. Everything changed. That hard, gritty edge, that distorted guitar, we'd never heard it.
Yeah. Yeah. People refer to them now as the forerunners to punk.
Yeah. And the vocalist who moved me the most, and the band that I love with the Animals, Eric Burden.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
House of the Rising Sun, Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, It's My Life, Don't Bring Me Down. He, another young kid, and with a voice, he was, that whole band, they might have been the best musicians of any of the early British invasion bands. Every member of that band was a good musician. They had a bona fide keyboard player, a bona fide guitar player, and their bass player, Chaz Chandler, was the musician who discovered Jimi Hendrix in New York and brought him back to England.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes.
It's a lot more behind the scenes that we knew about with those guys.
Everett Bird.
Yeah.
And then he did Spill the Wine with War. Spill the Wine, did that girl. He took over this black R&B band and fronted it and had a top 10 hit with Spill the Wine.
Interesting. Yeah, he was, back in those days when they had, the TV show was, what was it called? Hullabaloo was one of the shows, and then there was another one that... Shindig, yeah. And they would showcase the bands, and they all got to do one number on the show. But he was on, I think, as I recall, more than almost any other band, the Animals.
And what a great name. All the British bands, the Animals, the Kinks, the Zombies. I mean, great names. Just great names.
It represented a real paradigm shift for our culture when they came over. It changed everything. Because like you say, up until then, American music was dominated by, more poppy kind of songs, and it was fun, good music, but it wasn't what came over from Britain when the mid '60s, and everything changed after that.
The next guy, let's see, who do I have next? Oh, two guys from bands in the '70s. The first one is Paul Rodgers, who was the lead singer with Bad Company.
Oh yeah.
Who weren't a top tier band for me. They just didn't quite get over the top for me. But Paul Rodgers as a singer, spectacular vocalist. His first band was Free, and the big hit was All Right Now. All Right Now. That was Paul Rodgers. Then he formed Bad Company, and everywhere he went, he was in a band later with Jimmy Page called The Firm. But everywhere Paul Rodgers went, he has filled in with Queen for Freddie Mercury. He's one of the guys that can hit those notes. Paul Rodgers, world class vocalist. World class.
Interesting. And again, I was sitting out that era. I was living in a monastery then, so I missed a lot of those bands in the mid '70s.
The other group from the '70s.
What about Freddie Mercury? Wasn't he '70s?
Freddie he's on my honorable mention list.
Okay.
Because their music didn't do it for me. Blues, hard rock, blues. You were agree, and they were very theatrical. They were good. I mean, they got a great guitar player, Brian May's fabulous guitar player. But on the whole, they just didn't. I never bought an album. There's three British bands that I didn't get: Queen, Genesis, and Pink Floyd.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
just all three. Didn't do it for me. Never.
Swing and a miss.
Yes. But then this next guy got another great name. The band is Foreigner.
Oh, yeah.
They called the band Foreigner because there were three guys from Britain and three guys from America. So wherever they were part Foreigner.
Oh, yeah, I got to. Yeah.
Their lead singer was Lou Gramm.
Lou Gramm,
and he feels like the first time. You're as cold as ice. I mean, everything. This guy, until unfortunately, he had problems with his voice, and was replaced by a guy, Kelly, I forget his name. And that guy, the replacement guy, is now retiring. He did 45 years with the band, but Lou Gramm, one of Jukebox Hero, one of the great all-time rock voices, and he could hit any note that there was to hit. He could hit. He was, So again, these are the guys who bang, 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 just came to me, and a great band, Foreigner. 4 really terrific albums, and 4 great albums is tough to do. There aren't a lot of bands with 4 great albums.
Was What band was Steve Perry in?
Steve Perry was in Journey.
Of Journey. Yeah. Okay.
He's another guy. If I liked the band better, he'd be on my honorable mention. Yeah, great voice.
Yeah.
Just
the band didn't do it for you, but he as a singer was.
Yeah. Now that band, interestingly, their guitar player was Neil Schon. Neil Schon got his start on Santana 3 when he was 16 years old.
Right.
So he's younger than us. He was the guitar, and the keyboard player in Journey was Greg Rowley, who was Santana's keyboard player.
So there's
a Journey started as a pretty heavy outfit, but then they became what they became with the very well-known hits, which, but Steve Perry's another one, blew his voice out. He, couldn't sing anymore.
Is that right? Okay. I thought maybe he was still around and still doing it, but he pretty much had to step back.
Yeah, he's gone.
All right. But we got to be coming down now to kind of the tops.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I saved the best for last.
Yeah, but how many left on your list?
Well, I think we did Lennon 1, 2, Miller's 3, Jack 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is number 10, not number 10 in order, just the one, Jack Bruce from Cream.
Well, that's one I was going to ask about. Yeah, and he didn't make the Rolling Stone list of tops, but I thought, how could he not be on there? I knew that you would put him on. So let's talk about Jack Bruce, because he was phenomenal.
When Ahmet Ertegun from Atlantic Records was turned on to Cream, he envisioned it as Eric Clapton and his backup band. He wanted Eric to take center stage and the other two guys to be backup. Jack Bruce was way too good for that to happen. He was a much, much, much better singer than Clapton.
Yeah, way better. Yeah,
way better. And given the impact that band had in 2 years, to this day, I play guitar the way I play guitar because of the way Eric Clapton played in Cream. Period. It's it. He was my guy.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy and Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix. But Clapton's playing in Cream hit me where I live, and was one of the things in life that I had to do was get to the point where I can play like that.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I got pretty close. I mean, nobody, his playing in Cream is underappreciated and underrated because Hendrix came out right on the heels of Cream, and Hendrix got all the attention. But Clapton guitar playing in Cream is spectacular.
Well, it was a game changer for somebody, for music in general, for fans. I'm going to throw some names out. So that's your whole list.
That was my top 10.
All right, let's talk about some of your honorable mentions who probably could theoretically have landed on the list as well.
Well, Hendrix was a fantastic singer. His guitar playing was so amazing that 3 things got overlooked by Hendrix. The first was his songwriting. His songwriting is fabulous. His lyrics. Everyone talks about Dylan's lyrics.
Yeah.
I'll take Hendrix's lyrics as top.
Wow.
There are certain songs that he has that are just unbelievable. And his voice.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. He was shy to sing at first. He grew into it real quick. So he's on my honorable mention. Freddie Mercury, we talked about. Roger Daltrey from The Who.
He was on I was wondering if he would be on your list. I thought might be on it.
The Who didn't have enough catalog that I loved for me to. I loved some of the singles. I loved My Generation. I loved Pinball Wizard. I loved I Can See for Miles. But, how many times can you listen to a rock opera? It gets tedious. So their one album that is an all-time album is Who's Next.
Yeah.
Perfect album. Perfect from beginning to end. All-time Desert Island album. So
Pete Townsend was on TV the other night on Stephen Colbert. he's still around. He's still, he's coming. He's back. He never has gone away. But
he's virtually deaf.
Yeah, exactly. And that it was the band that was a good example of a band that really worked as a band and then made each of its players great because the band was so good. It was like the synergy of the combo was phenomenal.
Keith Moon, great drummer. Entwistle, great bass player. Townsend, not a great lead guitar player. That wasn't his thing. But texturing the guitar and rhythm guitar, and the parts that he came up with, I think he's the best rhythm guitarist ever. With Keith Richards second,
and of course he pioneered the windmill strum,
which he stole
from
Keith Richards. He saw the Stones were doing a sound check, and during the sound check, Keith did the windmill motion, never did it again.
No kidding.
Yeah. And Pete Townsend saw it and stole.
Sometimes you don't have to be first. You just have to go for it. You know what he said? He said something I never would have thought. He was talking about in the early days when they would go on and they would do 6 sets, and one of these reviews. Right. He said, and after each set, he would break his guitar. And then he would go back during the in-between with glue, and he would glue his guitar back together again, because he didn't have a replacement guitar for every bass. So he would get 3 or 4 or 5, generations out of one guitar, even after he broke it into bits. He would just glue it back together again.
Yeah, sure. Who had the money for replacement?
Right. Never would have.
The last guy I have on my honorable mention is a band that's been called the American Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, Steven Tyler.
Well, you got to play with them when they were just coming up, didn't you?
I jammed with them in their house on Commonwealth Avenue many, 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 many times. Many times.
And they were just kids.
Young pups.
Yeah.
But Steven Tyler, great frontman, great vocalist. But he's up.
Okay.
And they certainly had the longevity in the catalog to back that up.
Well, before you
tell me some people.
I'll tell you some of the ones I was going to ask you about. But and then I want to leave a little time to talk about some of the great women singers.
Okay.
So here's one that I've been obsessing about lately. I don't know that his band would be considered hard rock, but he was a singer during our era in a quote rock and roll band. Burton Cummings from the Guess Who.
Good band. Good singer, definitely a good singer. For me, it worked. What he did with that band, it worked. But his style was, to me, very, very, very limited. He sang kind of everything the same way, and there wasn't a lot of variation. I like to hear from ballad to rock to this to slow to fast. He was it's not a bad choice. He could bring it.
He's still around. He's still performing, and he just had I wasn't into him back then. I mean, the Guess Who was a pop band, a popular band.
They were an AM band, yeah.
But I wasn't. I liked their songs. They were catchy. They wrote terrific hooks. But then recently, when I heard him again, I realized, my God, this guy has a phenomenal voice, and there's something about it there's a stickiness to it.
It's unique. He's got a unique quality.
And rich, and there's a richness about it too that not all these singers had. So anyway, he was with somebody. Some names that came to me that might have made it. Rod Stewart himself, when since he started before he became Rod Stewart, he was part of the Faces and some other bands.
His first band, he was in the Jeff Beck group.
Oh, really?
When I saw Beck on at that Friday Night Spectrum concert, Rod Stewart was the singer. Yeah.
Huh.
They didn't get along. He left. He then joined. I didn't like Faces. I think it's pretty safe to say I don't like anything Rod Stewart ever did after he was with Jeff Beck. when I was playing bass in disco bands, he had a couple, Do You Think I'm Sexy? It gave us a nice song to play. But, and then most recently, he's put out 4 or 5 great American songbook albums. He's up standards, which surprisingly, given the gruffness and the gravel in his voice, you wouldn't think he could pull those songs off, but he does.
Yeah. Because he's really a stylist more than a vocalist in that regard.
I didn't think it would work.
I didn't think that he'd go anywhere because I didn't think his voice was so great, from the beginning. But it was so unique, and he made it work.
And he had the look. He had the spiky hair.
Yeah.
And he wore the slouchy clothes. He was definitely a rock star.
I'll throw a couple more names out before we move into the women. Sting.
Sting's name came up. I thought about Sting. Great Police, great band.
Yeah.
Three great musicians, and Sting is very talented guy. I just didn't get, maybe it's because they were later. In late 70s into the 80s, maybe the time to be really moved had passed for me. I love him. I think he's great, but he's not a top 10 for me.
But here's one that I didn't follow at all back, then only recently, because he recently died, I started thinking about it, is Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, because I didn't know that he was such a good singer. They were playing clips because I never listened to Black Sabbath. And all of a sudden playing these clips, and I'm like, my God, the guy had a really good voice.
Well, if you remember, in Miles Standish Hall, there were a lot of musicians.
Yeah.
A lot of guitar players, a lot of musicians. And we thought we knew what was good and what wasn't good. We were snobs. When Black Sabbath came out, they to us were like Blue Cheer.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were just, they didn't even count. They didn't count.
Well, they seemed like a gimmick band in a way.
They weren't even in the game.
Yeah.
Now, later on, as years went by and Ozzy kept surviving, people went back and embraced, what he did with Black Sabbath. But when they came out, they didn't exist.
Interesting.
Didn't exist.
All right. I'm going to throw out a group of names with just real quick comments, and then I don't want to run out of time before we talk about the women.
The women is easy.
Okay.
I got women covered in 2 minutes.
Well, Janis Joplin and who else?
Right.
But here's a few names that kind of made on these other lists, and I started thinking, they've been impactful, but again, maybe not in an era that it was impactful for us. People like Chris Cornell, Michael Stipe, Jack White, David Lee Roth, Eddie Vedder, Anthony Kiedis, Axl Rose. These are like the next generation guys, but I didn't know that Axl Rose has like a 7-octave vocal range, and I read about that recently just because I never was following them, but apparently these guys had some chops.
The only guy that you mentioned in that list that I don't hate was David Lee Roth. David Lee Roth I admire because he was a real persona. Even in Van Halen, he created the persona of David Lee Roth, but the front man with the lion hair.
Yeah.
But then in the mid-'80s, he had the guts to break away and Just a Gigolo. That was a hit for Louis Prima in the 50s. And California Girls. He redid California Girls.
That's right.
2 major hits. Now, I love David Lee Roth. I think he's great.
That's it.
And I loved Van Halen too. I can't play like that. My playing stopped before tapping came in. I can't do any of this
with those guys.
But the other guys you mentioned, I don't like their bands. I don't like their music. They're not on my radar.
Well, of course there's others that many names have been left on. And everyone's listening. Hopefully you got opinions on this. Write to us. Write to me at peter@pizzaquest.com and weigh in on this. And who knows, when we come back next season with some new shows, we got to get Peter back on for another round. But let's go through some women.
So I have 3. And it's
just the three that would make the list. Okay.
three define the genre. You mentioned one, Janis Joplin.
And Joplin.
Yet not the prettiest voice, she wasn't a pretty singer, but I can't think of any other artist, male or female, who built a career. Let's face it, she built a career on one song, the live version of Piece of My Heart from Big Brother and the Holding Company. Early live recording, 1968, one of the greatest live recordings ever, and she launched a career from that song. I can't think of anybody else where one song did it for them, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's over at Woodstock.
And she's unique no one could imitate her. She's one of a kind.
Blues singer from top to bottom, the real deal. Oh, look, the fall of 70 was with her and Jimi Hendrix, and then it was the tragedy, and they were all 27.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all 27.
All right, I'm going to throw out a name and I'm going to
Grace Slick.
Okay, Grace Slick. She's on my list here. I have one more I was going to throw and see if she made your list. It's my prediction if she makes your list, and that would be Linda Ronstadt.
Not a band. There's no band. She was in the Stone Ponies for 5 minutes.
Okay, so
that doesn't qualify.
One of her biggest hits was with them, but
different drum.
Yeah,
was her hit, but no, she's been a solo artist forever.
Okay,
that's another category with her and Joni Mitchell and
yeah. Okay, so Grace Slick with Jefferson Airplane.
Again, not the greatest voice, but the impact. The earliest psychedelic songs that I can remember hearing on the radio were White Rabbit and Somebody to Love. 1967.
Right.
Great. Both of them, great songs. They still hold up.
Yeah.
Somebody to Love and White Rabbit, they both
Yeah.
And after that, there's only one other lady for me, and she's Ann Wilson from Hort.
That's what I was going to predict that. I have her down here in the list. I was going to ask you, but I didn't know if she was too recent. I mean, it's kind of right after the next round.
Yeah, mid to late 70s.
Yeah.
Phenomenal voice, and the band was great.
Yeah.
Magic Band, Barracuda, they brought it. They brought it. And her sister, Nancy, was beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So you had the singer and both women, and I'm not a fan of women in rock, which everyone who knows me knows. It's a male-dominated field. Let it stay that way. But she's undeniably one of the greats. And I couldn't think of anybody else.
Well, and of course, I was having my list is much shorter on the women's side too, because I was trying to think who would meet, and some of the ones that they probably don't qualify because they weren't rock and roll singers, but they were singers in a group who emerged, and one was Diana Ross, Stevie Nicks, Chrissie Hynde, Debbie Harry, Annie Lennox.
Oh.
Well, she's really more of a, she's a personality in her own right. But then the one who's kind of a sentimental favorite of mine, who died around the same time as the others, is Mama Cass Elliot.
Oh. Now that's interesting. That's interesting. Mama Cass. Yeah. She goes on the. She's not honorable mention. She goes on the list.
She had a unique voice, and she was the glue that held that group together.
She sang lead on a lot of the things, and she was in a band, and not quite rock and roll, but they were in the era.
They were folk rock, really. But they were impactful.
Giving you absolutely more.
All right, so I scored one.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, we covered a lot of ground, and we've gone for about an hour, so the time has flown by as usual. I'm enjoying it. I hope that you listeners and those who are following along with us are having as much fun with this as possible. We want you to weigh in. Remember, Peter@pizzaquest.com. Write to me. We'll share all that, and then if you'll come back again in the spring when we start a new season, we'll come up with another new topic that we can explore together. I love having people who are on their own. You have a quest of your own that is different from Pizza Quest. Pizza Quest is my quest. You're a music quest guy, and it's your life. You have the passion and fire, and it burns in your belly so deep that for you, it's, we always say Pizza Quest is more about the quest than it is about the pizza. And I don't know anybody who's on fire with his personal quest as you are with your music. So thank you, and for all the passion you bring to it.
Can I give you my Mount Rushmore on male vocalists?
Absolutely. Let's finish with that.
Okay. For this, if it's supposed to be 4, I'm going to cheat. If it's 4, I'm going to count Lennon and McCartney as
1. Okay, they share a space.
Lennon's like all their songwriting credits.
Yeah,
Lennon and McCartney.
One will be facing one way, one will be facing the other way.
That's Steve Miller.
Steve Miller. That's going to be an outlier that a lot of people wouldn't have thought of. Okay.
Jim Morrison and Jack Bruce.
Jack Bruce.
Yeah,
Jack Bruce.
I can't add anybody to that, and I can't leave any of them off.
And for anyone who's listening who maybe is from a different era, is not familiar with the work of Cream, and especially focusing in on the voice of Jack Bruce, re-listen to it. Get him on your playlist and listen to that voice, because it's haunting. I think he's phenomenal. And thank you so much, Peter. We're looking forward to the next round. Hopefully, I'll see you sometime in the spring, in Philadelphia, when we reconnect back up there in our hometown. And I want to thank all of you for joining us in this season of Pizza Quest. This will be our last episode for the fall season, and we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back in the winter with a new round of episodes. So join us then. And until then, may all of your pizzas be perfect, and may you all find the quest that delivers purpose and meaning to your life. Thanks so much. Thank you, Peter. Bye-bye.